Do you think it was a good idea to vote for Nancy Pelosi uncritically without any demands?
We had no plan. Do you think the squad is a net positive for the left?
An interesting question.
Jimmy's a fucking clown, yo. Like, Jimmy was wildin'. There's no way in the world that you, Briahna Gray, thinks that everything you've done has been correct. I mean, we gonna keep talking about this though, man. Like,
we love that you're there.
No. It's mad hate.
You wouldn't. I think they were scared of Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say anything out of pocket. So if you can point to something that I said that was out of pocket, we can discuss it.
Jimmy Dore was the voice of that.
Oh boy, because you guys made him the
True.
voice of it. You chose to ignore a black woman.
Listen.
You don't talk to us. You freeze us out.
Why am I going on shows that all they do is talk shit about us? Why would I do that? So the objective at that moment was to force a vote on Medicare for all, right? Let's say that was the objective. Among other things, but let's say that was the objective. That was the main objective at that moment. That didn't happen. Okay? So if we all, so is that the end of it? Number one, like, are we still in this fight trying to do things together? Or are we, like, what does that mean, right? That, like, we're just done after that? Are we really trying to build, left power? And if the best way to build left power is, in my opinion, is to, like, get in a room and figure things out, then that's what we got to do. We got to get in a room and figure things out. If not you, but if the adversarial left is focused on being adversarial, then I'm not messing with me. Jamaal Bowman's not messing with you. I'll give you one example.
We're being adversarial, to be clear, to the Democratic Party that ousted you from your seat. The goal was not to be adversarial to you. It was to be adversarial to your enemy. And instead of aligning with us, you ended up aligning with a party that ultimately kicked you out of Congress for standing up against a genocide.
At that time, the adversarial left was adversarial towards specific people. Like, at that time. And so, like, listen, you want to be, if that's what you want, if that's your way of doing that thing, that's what you do. I'm just telling you how it's going to be received by someone like me. I can't speak for nobody else, but someone like me. Like, so you want to come, like, someone came to one of my town halls to call me out about something, like Ukraine war or something, right? And he's like, he just starts yelling, whatever. And I'm like, yo, okay, give me a second. Let me finish here. Let's talk and let's build and let's get this thing figured out. But if we're just going to be like, if everything is just a protest and you want to be adversarial and you want to be right, not you, but in general, people out there just want to make a good point or win an argument or be loud and mad, nasty, and disrespectful like Jimmy was at that time. Like, Jimmy was the face of that shit at that time. And so, like,
who made that the case?
Hold on, I don't know who made that the case. I have no idea.
Because again, there were dozens of us.
Real quick, hold on a second.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep talking about this. There's many other things to talk about. It was like 4 years ago, but like, Jimmy was the face of it, and Jimmy was wild, disgusting, nasty, and disrespectful. So if the leader of that thing is like that, why would I even mess with y'all or take y'all seriously?
Because it's a good idea. Because it's a good idea, Representative.
Jimmy's a fucking clown, yo. Like, Jimmy was wilding that day, back then. And so,
do you remember reaching out to me some months after the vote?
Yes.
Do you remember what you asked me on that call?
Vaguely. I remember the gist of it. I think I do.
I recall you asking me, okay, force the vote we didn't do it. What's next? Like, what's the next sort of idea that the left has? And I don't know if you remember, but I remember standing in the middle of the studio apartment that I was living in, basically still unemployed. I think we had just started this podcast from the Bernie campaign, and being really gobsmacked because it felt to me like what we were trying to convey, and why I might not have had the same tone or approach as Jimmy. I frankly respect his frustration, because the anger came from the realization that this could be the only opportunity in a generation for progressives, given that there's only like 6 or 7 of you, to actually be a stopgap, to be a point, to have real leverage in Congress. And the unwillingness to even talk about it as a possibility or entertain it. It wasn't like a light switch that went off and everyone was mad all of a sudden. The idea came out around like November, and the vote was in the first week of January. And so there were a couple of months of lobbying efforts. We did virtual town hall. Everything was virtual, obviously.
I got you, man.
Virtual
Listen,
town
that's
halls,
all.
and
I got you. That's
we
all
had
good. That's
people
all
on,
fair.
parents who had lost their kid to suicide because they had lost their prescriptions and gone off their meds.
Yes.
We had people who were blind and differently abled in all sorts of ways coming out to talk about how important this issue was to them. And we couldn't even get, Cornel West again, Chris Hedges came on these shows, but we couldn't get any Congress members to show up on these shows and listen to us. And so that's all to say.
So why do you think that is, though? So first of all, you mentioned the call. I reached out to you, right? And
months after, yeah.
And the crux of it was like, okay, what do we do next? Because I recognize that, I was like,
there's nothing.
No, but there
that was our moment.
No, but there is something else, and there has to be something else. And we need to figure out what that something else is. And the fact that no members of Congress, for whatever reason, didn't engage, I mean, yeah, we could just say the members of Congress were effed up or fraudulent, something wrong with them. But there also needs to be reflection of like, okay, like how could we have gone about it differently? Maybe that could be part of the conversation as well.
I think that they were scared. I think they were scared of Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Let me read you what AOC said in response to Justin Jackson, because I think there's some, I
mean, we're going to keep talking about this though, man. Like,
this can be the final point, because I do have other things I want to get to.
Okay.
But here's the point. She said, the problem with this idea is that there isn't enough thought given to step 2, which is similar to what you're saying. What's the plan, right? She says the Dem votes aren't there yet. And with razor thin margin, the Dem no's are greater sign margin. So in other words, there's not enough votes to actually pass Medicare for all. So basically she's saying, oh, what's the point? She goes on to say, so you issue threats, hold your vote, and lose. Then what? If you want to know who's supposed to look at the co-sponsor list. So the response to this, and what many of us were saying, was all these other demands, the committee positions that you say you're holding out for, that you're going to think Pelosi is going to give to you for being a good soldier and falling in line, you could actually demand through this process. And in fact, we all saw what happened, right? That you guys were really disrespected with respect to your committee appointments. Most recently, AOC just got disrespected again with these committee appointments, despite falling in line and not challenging Pelosi in these ways. So this isn't about force the vote per se. It's about the evidence that has accrued over time that the Democratic Party does not reward the left for playing along. And so therefore, what do we do going forward, to your point about affecting change? I would argue that playing within the Democratic Party has very, very limited upsides. And if you disagree with that, I'd be curious to know what you think that looks like within the party, within the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, I already responded to that. So what's next? Like, what are we building? Like, let's build something. Like, whatever it is, let's build it. Because I'm personally ready to build it. I'm connected with thousands of people who are ready to build it. We have to build it. We should have built it decades ago. We have to build it right now. And so let's build it.
So what about taking those thousands of people that you're connecting to as an idea, throwing it out there and saying, I just got ousted from my seat by a Zionist party, and a Democratic candidate just lost the election largely because he was more committed to continuing to fund this genocide and provide diplomatic cover for this genocide than capturing the 29% of 2020 voters who declined to vote for him in 2024 precisely because of the issue of Gaza. And therefore, I'm going to say I'm not going to endorse Joe Biden. Instead, I'm going to endorse a third party candidate, in this case, Jill Stein and Bruce Ware. and then I'm
So
going to
you want me to
continue to
say
put
that
my
now,
focus in
or
political. No, I'm saying I'm asking you whether you consider that and about your decision to endorse Joe Biden, despite this issue being so central for so many people, including yourself, both politically and personally.
yeah, I mean, I felt very strongly that if Kamala Harris would have won, we would have had an opportunity to move this issue in a different direction, especially considering the Green Party candidates, which, is going to be very hard for them to have a chance to win. I'm talking to you
What made you,
right now.
yeah.
They were going to have a hard chance to win. All polling showed that it was going to be tough. I'm speaking
What
right
made,
now today about like what do we do now? Like, so what's our vision and how do we make that happen now? Because that's what we got to focus on.
I think the vision would be to put all of the energy that would be going into telling people to come out in midterms and vote for Democrats, et cetera, to support candidates that and parties that oppose genocide, unlike the Democratic Party. So that 4 years from now, we're not having a conversation about, gosh, the Green Party just isn't strong enough. We have been building toward these parties being stronger so that that doesn't end up being a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy.
So you think the answer right now is building up the Green Party? You think that's the way to
Look,
go?
if you have another party, if you prefer PSL, if you want to start a whole new workers' party, I think many people had hoped that at the end of the
It's
2020
not the Working
campaign,
Families Party.
well, historically, the reality is the Working Party's Families Party has been um, the Democratic Party, co-opted by the Democratic Party and not independent in the least. And so if there were a
Yeah,
genuinely independent party,
yeah,
uh,
the Working Families Party to
that would be one thing. Yeah,
yeah, the
go ahead.
WFP, to your point, were outspoken against the genocide in Gaza, right? Yes.
And what does it mean? What does it mean to be outspoken against the genocide in Gaza, but ultimately lend your endorsement to the candidates without whom the genocide could not have happened?
Ah, got it. So WFP could have went the Green Party route as well. Got it. Okay, maybe. I mean, I guess that's fair. I guess no one, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I didn't see the Green Party having a shot at all. And like I said, I really felt strongly that Kamala Harris, we could have moved her on this issue had she
Why do you feel
won.
that way? Why do you feel that way? Because she seemed very clear. Biden dropped out. He names Kamala as the replacement nominee. There were like, I think 2 or 3 weeks where she didn't make any public statements or
Yeah, I
appearances.
mean, this
And then the
goes,
first thing that she says, the first statement that she puts out was to affirm that she wasn't going to break with Biden on Gaza policy.
yeah, yeah. She also, at the very least, mentioned Palestine and Palestinians in many of her speeches, which other Dems haven't done. I mean,
Well,
this
what does
goes
that
back.
do? But if she's saying she's not going to break from Biden on this policy, right, and has given many opportunities to modify that
So
statement and
what did
chooses
I
to
mean?
double
So what?
down.
So what many did, like me and others, was try to push her, try to move her on that. What I was going to say was, so you have like this goes back to where we started the conversation. The political system is controlled by special interests, AIPAC included, and pro-Israel lobby included. So everybody, all these people that we see, they're pretty much puppets. They're not even themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's why that's why the system is as effed up as it is,
I
and
agree
that's
with
why
you,
we
but
got to change it.
isn't that a reason to not believe Kamala Harris can be moved? I don't doubt, frankly. I mean, I
Kamala
have some
Harris
doubts,
is
but
so Kamala Harris as a person, I would hope, does not support genocide in
right,
Gaza.
but
I
that's
would One
exactly
would
what I was
hope.
about to say. And as a
But the
person, I
party,
would,
we keep talking about the
right,
part, like the party is the party. The party is part of a system that
right,
is upholding what it upholds. But we have
exactly.
people within that party who are trying to, who are
But
trying to figure it out.
if the people are controlled in the way that I think you've accurately described them as being controlled, isn't that an argument that no matter how good they are of a person on the inside or how much they want to behave differently, that they're ultimately going to be unmovable because the party system and the power system is stronger than they are. And that when you step out of line the way that you did, there are punishments.
Well, then there are members of the party willing to accept those punishments, like me and Corey. And there are members
Right.
of the
But then what
party,
is
and there
so
are
then what
members
is
of
the
the
conclusion about what that means about the ability to work within the party? Right? Like if you stand your ground and are ethical the way you were, you get kicked out of the party. Or you get
so.
punished the way
I
that
mean, but what I'm saying, like,
so what does that do to move the party to the left if the party simply ousts
but who
everybody
said
who would move
like
it to the left?
like so? You have members, you have Democrats in Congress, right? We've been talking about
Hmm.
Democrats in Congress and what they didn't do. There are many
Right.
things Democrats in Congress have done, right? Squad in particular. And so you're the squad. Israel's an apartheid state. Israel's committing genocide. You're calling that shit out consistently, right? As you're
Hmm.
doing that, people on the outside are engaging in movement building to like demand a ceasefire or move things on ceasefire, right? That's a perfect example to me of like inside outside working together. And so if me and Corey are doing that, or members of the Dem Party are doing that, and the result is we lose an election, now we're on the outside of elected office, but we still got power to do things, right? And so, as members to continue to stand right on the issues with the right values, if there's punishment, whatever, then Democrat Party continues to do this quote unquote punishment, then the opportunity for a third party to get stronger, the opportunity for movements on the outside to get stronger is realized because now it's like, okay, we have to build something different because the party's just messed up. And so that is part of a plan, but not enough of a plan because we got to think 50 years from now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. And so, like, what I'm saying is, and hopefully you're getting it from this conversation, like, I don't spend my time, trying to move the party or being a champion for the party or thinking about the party. It's about serving the people and how do we do that? That's generally speaking. And then the other thing I said, if anyone wants to work with me, like let's work together and let's get stuff done. If your idea, not yours, but anyone else's idea of working with me is like talking shit about me, then you could go ahead with that bullshit.
Representative Bowman. Okay. So I'm gonna table that last part. The plan, I would argue, yes, I'm so glad to hear you say that you're really interested in continuing to get engaged politically and work on strategies going forward. When you called me all those years ago, back in 2021, 2022, whenever it was, and asked me what was next, it did not feel like there was much in the transom. In this moment, if you're asking me what
Much
the
in the
plan
what?
is, much in the transom, much in the pipeline. There was no
Yeah.
plan.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, we're in the middle of Biden administration. There was absolutely no appetite for being adversarial to the Biden administration among elected Democrats or frankly among people in the streets. He had effectively suppressed agitation around Black Lives Matter because in my view, he made it
What do you
a
do?
zero-sum game between
What do you mean? Like everything you just said,
what do you
that's not
mean?
true. There was no
You don't think that
appetite
Biden
to.
effectively you don't think there was wait, you think there was an appetite for like political agitation under the Biden administration from Dems
Like we was
under the Biden
criticizing Biden.
administration?
We was criticizing Biden like all the time, like on a consistent basis. Like
Okay,
that was
well,
not.
about what in particular? You mean Build Back Better stuff and how it got bifurcated and holding the line and all that?
A million different things. I mean, you're saying that like during the Biden administration, like he squashed Black Lives Matter. Like, what are we talking about?
Well, yeah. Well, specifically, I mean that during 2020, he ran on funding the police harder, and that the argument that got made, there was a very rapid shift, as I observed it, in 2020, from a movement that emerged right as the primary season was ending, and where there was a lot of popular enthusiasm around police reform, including a poll that showed just after that Minneapolis police station was burned down, the majority of the public approved of arson of a police station. But as Joe Biden became the nominee, started running on tough on crime, funding the police harder, a a binary emerged where being defund the police as a quote unquote slogan was constantly talked about on liberal platforms as being harmful to the Biden effort to defeat Trump. And that if you wanted to defeat Trump, you couldn't engage in some of the lefty sloganeering and the crazy things that were coming out of the left, including the defund movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. And as a consequence, the appetite around it diminished, I think, more so than it would have if there had been a Trump administration. And now we're seeing, again, a lot of people more willing to speak out about Palestine, for example, because now it's Trump's genocide as opposed to being Biden's genocide. That's what I mean. As relative, it's a relative metric. There's historically and recurrently more appetite for protest under a Republican administration because many Democrats are reluctant to criticize Democratic leadership when they're the ones that are owning a given problem.
Okay.
That's all I mean by that.
Got it.
Sorry, so the plan going forward, I do think that there is utility. There was utility in people like yourselves being within the Democratic Party. So now we can see, we have proof positive for how antagonistic the Democratic Party is willing to be to its own members who are to their left. Similarly, I don't think Bernie Sanders running for president twice or me working on the 2020 campaign was a waste of my life. Sometimes I joke that he took my mid-30s, but like, I don't actually think it was a waste of time because, but for those examples, we wouldn't be able to say so confidently that the Democratic Party is willing to be more hostile to the left than they are to Trump and rising fascism and all the things that they have been warning about for all of these years. So I don't think that, I think that you're the role you and Cori Bush and the others have played is very instructive. The question is what you do with that energy now. Do you say I was treated so badly and disrespected in these ways, and yet I'm going to come back and sort of manufacture consent for this party year after year, tell people to vote blue no matter who for the lesser of two evils, et cetera, et cetera? Or do you take the lesson from this that the reason that we're in the situation right now with Donald Trump is because the Democratic Party chose to align with Zionism, with corporatism, with all of these interest groups that are against the American people. And as a consequence, there's a void. And Donald Trump and his faux populism was willing to fill the void. And if you want to prevent fascism from rising, you have to fill the void with real populism, which is not going to be found within the Democratic Party for all of the reasons of industry capture that you've described so well. And to me, that means telling your audience, telling your people that you have to contribute to build alternative party structures and not do what I think Bernie Sanders ultimately did, which is to say, I've got this huge movement of people, but I'm going to feed them back into the Democratic Party instead of taking that as an opportunity to do a dirty break.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Mostly. I mean, that's why, I'm doing my own thing right now. You know what I'm saying? We just launched a PAC called Built to Win. Go to builttowin.org to learn more. And the point there is year-round community organizing, year-round digital organizing, year-round engagement with working class communities of color, Black, Asian, Arab, Latino, to mobilize 5 million voters to impact the next presidential election and hundreds of thousands of voters in between now and then to impact local elections. I mean, we have to work with the people, listen to the people, and work in empowering the people at a local level. And so for me, that's Yonkers, that's the Bronx, that's Mount Vernon, that's New Rochelle, that's places in New York State that continue to be ignored. That's making sure people are engaged in their school boards and their city council and their town council and their village trustee, all of it. Like, we need people to be inspired to take back our democracy. And so that is my work. That's not my work as a Democrat. That's my work as Jamaal Bowman. And so anyone want to be down with that work, we're going to do that work, and that's the bottom line for me. And so, I don't know how much you know about my background, but, when I was in education for 8 years and I thought that the system wasn't doing enough to meet the needs of kids, founded a school and opened a school, right? That's what I do. That's how I'm built. So if something ain't working, I try to build something else. So I'm down with that. Anyone down with that in a serious way, like, let's do it. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna spend, not saying you do this, but I know a lot of people do this, and it's not even like, this doesn't make them bad people. We spend a lot of time on analysis and a lot of time on what's wrong with the problem, and not enough time on like figuring out solutions to that problem. And so my hope is I could be a part of the solution, whatever that looks like.
It troubles me a little to hear you say that, because it does feel to me
Say what?
like these that we're not focused on solutions. Because to me,
No, I'm not saying
direct
you. I'm just saying there's a
action.
lot of people who aren't focused enough on solutions, in my opinion. A lot of people out there, and it's
So that's
hard. Let me also be really clear. Like, so it's hard to do. Like, we're talking about building a third political party. That's hard to do. Community organizing is hard
indeed.
to do. Building a school is hard to do. Running a congressional campaign and winning, like, this stuff is hard to do, right? So, we have to spend time doing it. And oftentimes I've been frustrated by people who align on the right values, not doing enough of the collaborative work to focus on like what the solutions are and actually building toward those solutions.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.